Hey guys! So, I'm going to record on my camera so it doesn't suck as much this time like when I use my webcam. So, let's see. We're up to the second section of Rubyfruit Jungle, and this is Chapter 6. Our raggedy caravan kept to the coast as we moved slowly through the flatlands of the south. Carl and Ed detoured to take us kids to Richmond, and there we saw a stuffed seal that had come down to swim around Richmond in the 1800s. There was a stuffed Indian, too, but he made me sick. Leroy, Ted, and I liked the Civil War uniforms best. The Confederate ones were the prettiest because they had gold braid all down the cuffs of the sleeves. Leroy confessed if he didn't become a famous actor, he'd become a soldier so he could wear gold braid on his sleeves. I said that was okay, but then he couldn't wear lipstick, and he'd have to follow orders. The journey dragged on, and we nearly went crazy cooped up in the car. Carrie invented a license plate game that helped. First one to get 100 points wins. The plates of the state we were going through counted 1 point. Every state in the South, aside from that state, was 2 points. Northern states were 5 points, and Midwestern ones were 10. Western states were 20 points, and California plates were 30. I knew we'd never see California plates because only movie stars lived out there, and why'd they want to be driving around these washed-out lands? Once in Athens, Georgia, we pulled over to eat and go to the bathroom. Leroy, Ted, and I popped out of the car and zoomed into the dinky restaurant that smelled of years of grease. I sped past the door the boys used and into the next one. Carrie seized my arm as I was coming out. "You've got no sense, girl. You do that again, and I'm going to whale you good, you hear me? That's the colored room, and you stay out." I wasn't about to argue with her in front of strangers, but when we got back in the car, I asked Carl what all that meant. Carrie turned to him. "See, she won't listen to me. You make her listen." Down south, things are a little different than up in New York. Here, the whites and the coloreds don't mix, and you're not to mess with those people, although you are to be mannerly should you ever have to talk to one. Your mother is trying to save you from getting in trouble someday. "Daddy, that's no different than up home in York. They just don't put colored over the bathroom doors, that's all." "You little smart mouth, you shut your trap," Carrie warned. "No, I ain't shutting my mouth. It's no different except for the signs. I ain't gonna sit here and pretend it's different when it ain't." Leroy tugged my sleeve, fearing a fight. I gave him a jab. "Daddy, why should I shut up?" "You got a point there, kid, but around here, people get more riled up about colors than they do in the North. Other than that, you're right. I can't see it's no different either." Carrie said we were both checked and looked glumly out the window. "Since I don't know who my real folks are, maybe they're colored. Maybe it's all right for me to go into the bathroom." "My God!" Carrie exploded. "If you ain't enough trouble now, you want to go be a nigger." Carl laughed, and the sun caught on his gold tooth and reflected back of the window. "It'd show, Molly. Who knows what you are? You're a mongrel, that's all." "She's darker than the rest of us, Uncle Carl," Leroy piped up. "She's got brown eyes. None of us got brown eyes." "Lots of people have brown eyes and are olive complexed. Italians and Spaniards are like that." "Hey, Molly, maybe you're a spick," Leroy offered. "I don't care what the hell I am, and I ain't staying away from people because they look different." Carrie whirled around in a full fury and spat. "If I ever gonna see you mixing with the wrong kind, I'm gonna wring your neck, brat. You try it and see how far you get." "Cat, children don't understand these things. No reason to get so upset. Your mother's trying to save you trouble, Molly. Let it lie." When we hit Florida, we were all excited, but that didn't last long. We drove and drove, and it was still Florida. Florence said we were going down the East Coast to the southern tip because that's where all the jobs and money were. Finally, we pulled up in Fort Lauderdale. Carl said Miami was full of Jews, so he'd try this place first. I couldn't believe there'd be a whole city where people walked around with their hands in their pants, but I didn't ask. Fort Lauderdale was laced with canals and palm trees, and everyone liked it a lot. Within a week, Carl had found a job in a butcher shop in the northeast of the city. Ed got one the week after that, putting jalousie windows in houses, but the company wanted him to move up to West Palm Beach. He said he would, so Leroy, Ted, and Ed moved up to Loxahatchee and lived in a trailer. It looked like a fat silver larva squatted on 4 acres of scrub. We didn't get a trailer, but a house next to the Florida East Coast Railway and behind an electrical power plant that hummed constantly. The only time you couldn't hear the hum was when the train came through. Every Sunday, we went up to Loxahatchee, where Leroy, Ted, and F came down to see us. Leroy had a .22 rifle and thought he was hot shit. Ted was working after school in another gas station. I was mostly hanging around Holiday Park, because there was nothing else to do, and Carrie wouldn't let me have a .22. That September, I went to Naval Air Junior High School, a makeshift school in Navy barracks left over from World War II. The teachers were left over too, and I was bored out of my mind. I kept to myself to see who was in that place before I made any friends. There were a fair amount of rich kids at Naval Air. You could tell them by their clothes and the way they talked. I knew enough from English lessons by this time to know that they had good grammar. They held themselves away from the redneck kids. I didn't mix with anybody. I knew I wasn't rich, but then I wasn't walking around with little plastic clothespins on my collar like all the other redneck girls either. The boys were much worse than the girls. They had long, greasy hair and wore denim jackets with bloody eyeballs drawn on them. Hot as hell, they'd wear those denim jackets and black motorcycle boots, and they were dirty mouths to go along with it. Back in the hollow, we were all the same. Maybe Cheryl's Spiegel glass had a little more, but the gap didn't seem so wide. Here it was a distinct line drawn between two camps, and I was certain I didn't want to be on the side with the greasy boys that leered at me and talked filthy. But I had no money. It took me all of 7th grade to figure out how I would take care of myself in this new situation, but I did figure it out. For one thing, I made good grades, and they counted for a lot. You couldn't go to college without good grades. Even in junior high school, the rich kids talked about college. If I made those grades, I'd get a scholarship. Then I'd go too. I also had to stop talking the way we talked at home. I could think bad grammar all I wanted, but I learned rapidly not to speak it. Then there was the problem with clothes. I couldn't afford all those clothes. The next fall, when Carrie took me to a learner shop for my wardrobe, I told her I didn't want $2 blouses from Learners. She didn't get mad like I expected. In fact, she seemed pleased that I was taking an interest in my appearance. It gave her hope for my femininity. She agreed that I could buy a few good things from a better store. Kids at school may have noticed that I wore the same things a lot, but at least they were good things. And I knew I couldn't make my way by throwing parties. What would we all do? Dance to the power plant hum? Anyway, I wasn't up for bringing those snobs home. I decided to become the funniest person in the whole school. If someone makes you laugh, you have to like her. I even made my teachers laugh. It worked. It was about this time during the last of 8th grade that Leroy and I began to understand we weren't going to run away together and become famous actors. One Sunday, when the Ixora were in full bloom and everything was bright red, we went up to Loxahatchee. Leroy and I were down by the canal at Old Powerline Road fishing. Leroy wasn't a tub anymore. He had grown his hair into a DA that curled over his denim jacket with the bloody eyeballs on it. "Hey, is it true you're flunking out this year?" "Yeah, the old man is ready to take the strap to me, but I don't give a damn. School's stupid. There's nothing it can teach me. I want to go make money and buy me a Bonneville Triumph like Craig." "Me too, and I paint mine candy apple red." "You can't have one. Girls can't have motorcycles." "Fuck you, Leroy. I'll buy an army tank if I want to and run over anyone who tells me I can't have it." Leroy cocked his slicked head and looked at me. "You know, I think you're queer." "So what if I am? Except I'm not real sure what you mean by that." "I mean, you ain't natural, that's what I mean. It's time you started worrying about your hair, doing those things that girls are supposed to do." "Since when are you telling me what to do, lard-ass? I can still lay you out flat." Leroy backed off a few paces, because he knew it was true, and he wasn't up for no fight, especially since we were near a bed of sand spurs. "How come you're all of a sudden so interested in my being a lady?" "I don't know. I like you the way you are, but then I get confused. If you're doing what you please, out there riding around on motorcycles, then what am I supposed to do? I mean, how do I know how to act if you act the same way? What goddamn difference does it make to you what I do? You do what you want, and I do what I want." "Maybe I don't know what I want," his voice wavered. "Besides, I'm a chicken and you're not. You really would go around on a candy apple red Triumph and give people the finger when they stared at you. I don't want people down on me." Leroy started to cry. I pulled him close to me, and we sat on the bank of the canal that was stinking in the noon sun. "Hey, Hey, what is it? You gotta be crying over more than me fixing my hair and riding a bike. Tell me. You know I'll never tell. I'm all mixed up. First, there's the gang at school. They're all tough, and if I don't act tough, they'll whip my ass and laugh me right out of the school. I gotta smoke and swear and take cars apart. I like taking cars apart, but I don't care about the smoking and the swearing, you know? But you gotta do it. You don't do it, and they say you're queer. You mean queer for real? Sucking cock queer? Yeah, and there's this one poor bastard. There's this one poor guy, Joel Centers. Joel's skinny and tall, and he likes school. He does his lessons every day, and he likes English class best of all. English? You should see what they do to him. Nobody's doing that to me. Who cares what those dumb jocks think? Anyway, you can play along with them, and as soon as we both get out of high school, we can hot-foot it up to a big city. We can do what we want then. And that's only 4 years away. Might as well be 100. I gotta worry about right now, and at the rate I'm going, I'm not gonna get out of high school in 4 years. I'm sure to flunk a few more times. So we wait until I get out, and then we leave. It's not so impossible. Yeah, it is. You're different than I am. You make good grades and know how to act with different kinds of people who aren't like us. I can't do those things. You can learn. You're not deaf, dumb, and blind. Sure, then they'll call me a queer for sure. Leroy, you are harping very heavy on this queer thing. First you tell me I'm a queer, and now you're so worried everybody's going to think you're one. You look like an ordinary person. What are you worried about? You swear never to tell? You promise me? Yes. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was down at Jack's Golf Station where Ted's working, you know. There's this old guy, Craig, hangs around there. He's maybe 25 or something like that, and he lifts weights. You should see his muscles. And he's got the biggest, hottest Triumph in all Palm Beach County. He's all the time taking me for rides. He don't look like no queer to me. Not with all those muscles and that deep voice. We're getting to be friends, him and me. The guys at school really get jealous when they see me on that bike, you know. Nearly kills them. So one night we got out drinking. I didn't get drunk, just feeling good. We were out near to Bellblade, out in the scrubs, and well, Craig put his hand on my crotch. I was scared shitless, but it felt good. He gives me this blowjob, and it felt great. Really great. So now I'm scared. Really scared. Maybe I'm a queer. Damn, the old man finds out. Ted, they'll kill me for sure. You tell anybody besides me? No, you think I'm crazy? You're the only one in the world who I can tell because I think maybe you're queer too. I remember all of us kissing old Leota B. Bisland. You seen Craig again? I stayed away from the station for a couple of days after that. I couldn't face him. Then he came tearing down the road to the trailer after I got home from school. And nobody's home, so we talked, and he tells me not to worry. He's not telling anyone, because they'll throw him in jail for corrupting a minor. Then he tells me he loves me and tried to kiss me. I may be queer, but I ain't kissing no man. But I let him suck me off again. Shit, I don't know what the hell to do. Keep doing it if it feels good. Hide it, that's all. It's nobody's business what you're doing anyway, Leroy. Yeah, that's the way I figure it. I'm just scared someone's going to find out and throw Craig in jail or beat me to shit. The guys at school roll queers all the time. I ain't up for being blasted to hell, for sure. Leroy, you screwed any girls? Yeah, I screwed this blonde whore at the Blue Dog Inn one night. Everybody had a shot at her. I didn't think it was so great. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't so great. You been fucking around? Nah, it's harder for girls. I go doing it and I lose everything, you know. Harry and Florence would put me in a convent, plus the whole damn school would run me to the ground. But I'll do it on the sly the first chance I get. See, the real problem is getting the boy to shut his mouth. They screw a girl and they got to announce it to the whole friggin' world. I gotta find a boy with his tongue cut out or something. You ain't worried about getting pregnant? No, I ain't that stupid. Do you think I'm a queer? I think you're Leroy Denman, that's what I think. I don't give a flying fuck what you do, you're still Leroy. It's kind of cool that Craig likes you and you get to fly around on that big machine. He sounds nice, and he sounds better than pumping some tired whore who doesn't give a shit if you live or die. I mean, Leroy, at least he cares about you. That's gotta count for something now, doesn't it? Yeah, but it makes me feel funny inside. Sometimes when I hear songs on the radio, I think that's how I feel about Craig. That scares me a lot more than getting sucked off. What if I'm in love with him, for Christ's sake? Have you ever loved anybody? I think I loved Leota, but that was a long time ago. See, I told you were queer. Fuck off. Why has he got to label everything? Get off that jag before I bust you one in the mouth. That's the way it is. You ain't gonna find many people that think like you, so you'd better be ready to hear what they call you when you talk to them the way you talk to me. I guess I'll find out myself, because I ain't shutting up. Leroy didn't look much better than when we started this conversation. He was fiddling with his fishing pole. You got something more to say? No. Then why are you so God almighty nervous? He shifted his weight and stammered. You said you'd do it if nobody tells? I like you better than any girl I ever met, and, well, I gotta find out, you know. I won't tell. I promise I won't tell. If you'll do it with me. Come on, please. The thought of doing it wasn't shocking. It was that I'd never thought about doing it with old Leroy. Well, Leroy, I don't think I feel, romantic about you. That don't matter. We're best friends, and that's better than all that mush. How are we gonna do it without getting caught? We'll go down to the shack back of the lot. Only other person who ever goes there is Ted, and he's at work. Come on. Okay, it can't be all that bad, I guess. We snuck around the far side of the trailer and went down through the palmetto scrubs to the shack. An old twin-bed mattress that had the stuffing half knocked out of it was on the floor. We checked it for snakes and bugs. Then Leroy whips out his thing and jumps on top of me. Leroy, you asshole! Don't you want to take your clothes off? I never did that before. Well, I ain't fucking you unless you take every stitch off. I want to see what I'm getting. Okay. I'm taking them off. He tugged at his socks, dawdled with his pants, and generally took a very long time. I had my things off in about 2 seconds. Molly, I never saw a girl without her clothes on except in dirty pictures. You look fine. I can see all those little muscles in your stomach. Your stomach is better than mine. Look, you haven't got very big tits, though. Go buy a pair of falsies and play with them. It don't matter none, he said, getting stuck on the zipper. I think huge ones are ugly anyway, but all the guys go nuts about them. Can you get this zipper down? After a struggle, I got his jeans off. He was determined not to take his jockey shorts off, so I reached up and pulled them down in one jerk. Leroy gave out a little shriek. Quit this fooling around and get on down here. He snuggled up next to me and lay quietly for a few minutes. Then he gave me a slobbering kiss. He never did get the hang of it, but at least he had a heart on. After that, he crawled on top of me and gets ready to do his number. Leroy, we ought to wait around a while. One kiss isn't exactly the whole show. I thought you said you didn't never fuck, so how come you're telling me what to do? At least I've done it before. It didn't seem worth it to tell him about Leota, so I said, okay, do it your way. Leroy huffed and puffed. All those books I read said it's supposed to hurt the first time, but it didn't hurt at all. In fact, Leroy felt dimly good in there, even though that seemed 1,000... Leroy felt dimly good in there, but, well, it wasn't just the same as Leota, even though that seemed like 1,000 years ago. If I closed my eyes, I could still feel her lips on mine. Even now, it gave me a shudder. Leroy rolled off, exultant. That was a lot better than that old whore. I leaned up on one elbow and looked at Leroy with bud on his cheeks and small defined muscles already bulging in his back. Well, Leroy, I thought, it might have been a lot better than that whore, but you can't hold a candle to Leota. Yeah, maybe I'm queer, but why would people get so upset about something that feels so good? Me being a queer can't hurt anyone. Why should it be such a terrible thing? It makes no sense. But I'm not going to base my judgment on one little fuck with old Leroy. We got to do it a lot more. Maybe I'll do around 20 or 30 men, or 20 and 30 women, and then I'll decide. I wonder if I could get 20 people to go to bed with me. It doesn't really matter anyway. I am truly glad to know I'm better than a worn-out prostitute. I laughed and threw Leroy back on the mattress. He thought I was going to beat him up and started pleading. Shut up, stupid. I'm not going to hit you. I kissed him and grabbed his thing. He was in utter shock. You can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? Men and women are supposed to close eyes and fuck. You're not supposed to grab me. You amaze me. You are for sure getting yourself screwed on rules other people make. I can do whatever I want. I feel like playing with you, and I'm going to do it. Why don't you lie down and shut up? It's kind of fun anyway. He started to protest, but I put my arm up to belt him, and he laid there, quiet as a lamb. The sun was setting over the flatlands full of sandspurs, lizards, and cockroaches when we headed after the trailer. You ain't saying anything, Molly, you promise. I'm not breathing one word. Anyway, you got something on me, so why worry? I got everything to lose if I rat on you, so don't worry. We'll do it again sometime. And don't worry about Craig either. You hear me, Leroy? Just do what you damn well please. Leroy looked at me with grateful eyes and gave me a hug. We got back to the trailer in time for supper. Florence was scurrying around with her apron on, putting food on the tiny table. She asked over black-eyed peas, "You two been down to the canal all this time? You catch anything down there?" "Just a couple of queer fish," I said. Leroy choked on his chicken wing, and Florence asked if we wanted more milk. That was chapter 6. I hope you guys liked this video with the camera, and we'll see you again soon. Bye!